Fig Pudding, Chapter 3. Under the Kitchen Table. Grandma Annie liked to say that Teddy was born with the heebie-jeebies in his veins and his brains. I couldn't agree more, and I should know because I've babysat him. Plenty. Lots of times, Dad and Mom went out shopping. They take the baby and put me in charge of the other kids. That wouldn't have been half bad if it hadn't been for Teddy. He can make any babysitter miserable because he never slowed down and he never stopped coming up with new ways of getting in trouble. One time, Mom asked me to babysit the other kids while she took Brad to the doctor's. All Teddy did was feed the fish while dumping Cheerios into a bowl. He took singed jewelry and put it on her stuffed animals. He tossed Mom and Dad's toothbrushes into the toilet. When Mom got back, Teddy got in trouble, and I got into trouble too, for not minding him better. "You've got to keep a closer eye on Teddy," Mom told me. What was I supposed to do? Put him in a straitjacket? Tie him up? There are laws against stuff like that. Take how Teddy acted on New Year's Day when we were at Aunt Pat and Uncle Arthur's house for the big holiday feast. The holiday feast was a combination dinner where each family brought one major dish, or dessert. Just thinking about it made my mouth water. Uncle Eddie always fixed spaghetti with thick sausage and meatball sauce. Aunt Pat and Uncle Arthur had spent a dozen years in South Carolina. Uncle Arthur always made his famous she crab bisque. Aunt Pat fixed fried chicken with sweet potato biscuits. Aunt Marilyn always baked these delicious little dough pockets, some stuffed with meat, others with spinach and onions and mint. Grandma Annie usually made a couple blueberry pies, plus a double batch of Stollen. We always made fig pudding, or should I say, Dad made it. He had a friend from college, a guy who grew prize-winning figs on his farm in California. Just before the holidays, a UPS truck pulled up in front of our house with a box of figs, as it did every year. On Saturday, the day before the feast, Dad cooked. As a cook, Dad was the exact opposite of Grandma. Grandma invited everyone into the kitchen. She handed out jobs which she'd work. Dad called himself a solo artist, and he insisted on cooking alone. "Out, out," he yelled, shooing us from the kitchen. "A great chef needs to focus. A great chef needs to concentrate." "Yeah, Dad, we know what a great chef needs," I teased him. "But don't you think you could use a little help? A great chef," Dad sniffed, "is not often appreciated by his family." He spent all afternoon there, surrounded by bowls, mixer, figs, eggs, molasses, lemon, buttermilk, walnuts, cinnamon, nutmeg, brown sugar, and confectioner's sugar. It looked like a mess, but Dad knew what he was doing. He could make one mean fig pudding. While he chopped, stirred, and mixed, we could hear him sing, "Now bring out the figgy pudding, now bring out the figgy pudding, now bring out the figgy pudding, now bring it right here. We won't go until we get some, we won't go until we get some, we won't go until we get some, so bring it right here." The whole family was in a great good mood. Josh had just gotten out of the hospital a couple days before. At Aunt Pat and Uncle Arthur's house, we can celebrate having Josh back with us, Mom said. But it didn't work out that way, mostly because of Teddy. The moment we arrived, Teddy started running through the house, and he didn't stop running until it was time to eat. Then he clowned around at the table by licking his plate. Mom made him stop, but when it was time for dessert, Teddy threw a glob of fig pudding that landed on the white dress of Rebecca, our 8-year-old cousin. After dinner, Teddy raced to the living room and knocked 2 glasses of punch off the coffee table. Mom put Teddy on time out. "Too much sugar," Aunt Ruth suggested. "Too much Christmas," Mom put in. "Just the heebie-jeebies," Grandma said. He'll grow it. Later, when Teddy bit Cousin Sheila on the arm, I knew it was time to leave. We got into the car and started home. 5 minutes later, Teddy was fast asleep. "Finally," Dad whispered. "Mom, why was Teddy so awful today?" Sid whispered. "If they had a jail for 2nd graders, he'd be in it. He's like the baddest kid in the world." "Not bad, just wild," Mom replied. "I guess some people are born that way." Amen. Teddy was born wild. The way Mom tells it, Teddy never really learned to walk. At 11 months, he pulled himself up into a standing position and started running around the house. He fell a lot, but he could still move fast. And once Teddy could move, nobody was safe. Teddy was wild in church, wild in school, and especially wild during the holidays. After Christmas, while Josh was at Good Sam, Teddy started hiding people's presents and unscrewing lights on the tree. He took globs of silvery tinsel off and made little bird nests that he stuck back onto the tree. One day, while Mom and Dad were shopping, Teddy stole baby Jesus from the manger and laughed when no one could find it. See what I'm saying? He stole Jesus and thought it was funny. Grandma Annie always said that Teddy had the eyes of a priest. Ha! The eyes of a devil is a lot more like it. After Josh came home from the hospital, Mom and Dad figured Teddy would calm down. Wrong. If anything, Teddy got worse. Some of his pranks made me laugh, like the time he stuck a cold fried chicken leg under Sin's pillow. But when he started messing with my stuff, I stopped laughing. He stole my collection of all-star baseball cards and took them outside in dead winter. I found them blowing across the backyard like a bunch of dry leaves. Teddy got punished for that, but the following week he was at it again. This time, he took my prize marble, a huge crystal mumbo, pale silver, with a piece of netting at the center. He stole the marble off my broom, brought it to school, and actually traded it to a sixth grader named Spencer Harris for a stopwatch. When I found out about that, I decided to unscrew his greasy little head once and for all, and I would have done it, except that Dad stepped in. He called up Spencer Harris and made him trade back. Then Dad gave Teddy a long lecture about respecting other people's belongings. I knew that wouldn't help, and it didn't. In the middle of February, Teddy took my new Lionel train engine outside and left it on the back porch. I found it frozen solid to the snow. "Mom!" I screamed. "I'm gonna murder that kid!" Mom did what she always did. She sent Teddy straight up to his bedroom. But this time, Teddy sort of went berserk. He opened his bedroom window and started throwing stuff. Books, clothes, coat hangers, down to the yard below. "That's it!" Mom yelled. "I've had it! The worm has turned!" She dragged Teddy downstairs, into the kitchen, and made him sit under the kitchen table. "You stand there," she said. "Here, at least I can keep an eye on you." "How long?" he whimpered. "Till I say," she shot back. "How long is that?" "I don't know how long," Mom told him. "I haven't decided. Right now, I just want you to think about how you've been behaving around here." Teddy put on his poutiest face, but I didn't feel sorry for him. The way I figured it, he deserved this punishment, and a lot more. "But how long?" Teddy asked again. "A year," I muttered. "Maybe 2. "Shut up!" Teddy screamed at me, and that's how it started. Whenever Teddy got into serious trouble, which he did at least once a day, Mom put him under the kitchen table. "Can I go now?" he'd ask after a little while. "I'll be good." "That's what you always say," Mom said, shaking her head. But after a while, she always let him go. When the school bus came one morning, Teddy hid behind a tree and left without him, under the kitchen table. Teddy found Brad's toy car lying beside the driveway. It was a little red plastic Jeep with a hood that could open and shut, and a little man seated behind the steering wheel. When no one was looking, Teddy wedged the toy Jeep behind the back wheel of Mom's car. Later, when she backed her car down the driveway, Brad's Jeep and driver got flattened together like a pancake. Brad started wailing non-stop, and Teddy went under the kitchen table. The strange thing was that Teddy never tried to hide the truth about what he'd done. "Did you put Brad's truck under there?" Mom asked. "Yeah," he admitted. "Did you know the car'd break?" "I guess." "You guess?" "Yeah," he said. "I knew." "How would you like someone to break one of your favorite toys?" Silence. Then, "I wouldn't." Why'd you do that?" "I don't know." Some days, I did feel a little sorry for Teddy, with his round head and pudgy belly and crew-cut hair, resting his chin in his hands, crying a little, but mostly just looking sad or mad or glum. He spent lots of time under the kitchen table. At times, it seemed like he practically lived under there. One day, a friend telephoned for Teddy while he was under the kitchen table. "Can't play right now," Teddy whispered into the phone. "I'm back in the dungeon." Teddy was under the kitchen table when the plumber came to fix the kitchen pipes. He was sitting under there when old Mrs. Ream Snyder and old Mr. Hollis came over after church on Sunday morning. He was sitting under there when my best friend, Larry Green, came over to play. Nobody thought much about it. One morning, Mom couldn't find a couple squares of yeast she needed to bake bread. She searched the kitchen twice. "I know I bought that yeast," she said, chewing her bottom lip. "It's got to be around here someplace." Teddy ran to the room, and Mom grabbed him by the arm before he could scoot by. "Teddy, have you seen a couple little packets of yeast?" By way of answer, Teddy walked over to the refrigerator, reached behind it, and pulled out 2 shiny packets. Mom lowered her head and gave him a suspicious look. Did you put it there? Please tell me the truth. No, Mom. See, yesterday when I was, sitting under the table, I thought I saw something shiny back there, but I didn't know what it was. Well, good thing keep your eyes peeled, Mom said to him. Looks like we'll be having bread tonight after all. A few weeks later, Mom was trying to decide what to buy Mrs. Ream-Snyder for birthday present. What on earth does a 70-year-old woman want or need? Mom asked. Socks, Teddy said. That woman needs socks so bad. Her socks have more holes than Swiss cheese. When did you know that? She asked. When I was... Teddy pointed onto the kitchen table. So, Mom bought Mrs. Ream-Snyder 3 bright new pairs of cotton socks. Perfect, 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 Mrs. Ream-Snyder said when she opened the present. Socks are exactly what I needed. How on earth did you know? A couple of weeks later, we were sitting around the kitchen table, eating blueberry pancakes for breakfast. Know what? Said Teddy. I think Mr. Hollis and Mrs. Ream-Snyder are going to get married. Yeah, sure, I laughed. True, he was a widower, and she was a widow, but they were both ancient. I don't think so, Mom said, smiling. They're both a little too old to get married. Mr. Hollis must be close to 80 by now. Sometimes a man and a woman stay good friends without ever getting married. 3 weeks later, it came to the mail. A wedding invitation. Old Mrs. Ream-Snyder and Mr. Hollis were actually going to tie the knot. The rest of us were in total shock. How on earth did you know? Dad asked Teddy. From sitting under the kitchen table, he said. Last time they came over, I was sitting under there, and I saw them holding hands, secret-like. It would be great if the story could end there with everybody amazed at all the things Teddy noticed, and him just sort of outgrowing having to sit under the kitchen table. The way a snake outgrows its skin. But it didn't happen that way. True, Teddy got famous in our horse for the stuff he'd noticed. With Teddy's sharp eyes, didn't keep out of trouble. One morning at school, in late February, he dared this little kid, Paul Annaboli, to lick the ice-cold metal ball in the jungle gym. Of course, the kid's tongue got stuck there, frozen solid to the metal. Don't move, Teddy told him, but the kid panicked and pulled away and left a bunch of his tongue skin to the metal pole. When Teddy got home, he got sent back to under the kitchen table. In mid-March, we got a sudden snap of warm weather. Brad took a blanket out to the backyard and lay down to read his favorite book about his favorite subject, horses. The book was a present from Grandma Annie, Horses Around the World, with lots of beautiful photographs. When Teddy saw Brad reading, he ran up to him. Mom needs to talk to you, Teddy said. That was a lie, of course, but it would never occur to gullible Brad that anyone would lie to him. He ran inside and left the horse book lying on the grass. Teddy found a big, fat green caterpillar. He opened the book, dropped in the caterpillar, and splat, slammed the pages shut. When Mom heard about it, she dragged Teddy to the kitchen. Back there? Teddy asked. He pointed on the kitchen table. Nope, Mom said. She shook her head. No more. He looked up, surprised. Why not? Doesn't work, Mom said. All the time you spent sitting under that table hasn't helped make you act any better. What's the use? We'll have to think of something else. I'm a free man, Teddy cried. A free man! Yes, Mom said, but you ruined Brad's book, Mr. Free Man. I'm going to find out how much it cost, and you are going to pay back every cent of it. Do you understand me? Yeah. A few days later, Teddy was back under the kitchen table, surrounded by about 20 stuffed animals. What are you doing under there? Mom asked. You didn't do anything wrong. You're a free man, remember? Having a circus, he said. The table is my circus tent. The next day, Teddy and Brad took their plastic soldiers under the kitchen table and had a war. The day after that, Teddy and Brad set up a food store under the kitchen table. They played for hours. All this made no sense to me. I finally said to Teddy, Didn't you hear what Mom said? You don't have to stand there. You can play wherever you want. So? Teddy just shrugged. So why hang around here? I asked. You've got the whole house to play in. It's cool under here, Teddy said. I'm used to it. It's like my favorite place in this whole house. And I mentioned this conversation to Mom. She just looked at me, slowly shaking her head. That's what I was afraid of, she said. Chapter 4. The Tackle Box. On April 5th, I turned 12 and got the best present ever, a fishing tackle box. I fell in love with it. The solid weight, the 6 little drawers made of clear, hard plastic so you could see the stuff inside. There were extra hooks in one drawer, sinkers in another, extra fishing line in the third, bobbers in a fourth, fishing lures in the fifth. In the 6th drawer, I found a brand new fishing knife with a jagged blade, snug in its own leather pouch. For my birthday, Dad took me and Nate and 3 of my friends to Fenway Park in Boston. We watched the Sox pound the Yankees 11-5. I almost caught a foul ball, and came home for pizza and cake and ice cream and presents. After I had opened the tackle box, I started looking forward to everyone going home. After the last kid left, I took the tackle box up to my bedroom, closed the door, and put it on my bed. I'd never seen anything so beautiful. I opened it up and took out the gear. I spread everything out in separate piles, taking care not to get the piles mixed up. I figured the best place to keep my tackle box would be under my bed. It had to be a safe place or people, Teddy, couldn't get into it. Nate and I shared the bedroom, but I never worried about him. He didn't mess around with my stuff, and I didn't mess around with his, especially his junk. Nate collected junk. He was famous for it. If you peeked into his junk drawer, you see all sorts of weird things. Big metal bolts, a drop line with sinker, trilobite fossils, a bird's skull, a rusty hubcap, a broken gyroscope, links from a bike chain, a junk of fool's gold, a golf ball with a cover ripped off, quartz crystals, arrowheads, wires, wasp gears, ball bearings. Just then, Nate came into the bedroom. "That's cool," he said, touching the tackle box's smooth red side. "That would be perfect to store my junk." I shot him a look. "Just kidding. Hey, can I come fishing when you go?" "Yeah, I guess. When?" "When Dad takes me," I said, "whenever that is." Nate's question got me thinking. Later that night, I asked Dad, "When can we go fishing?" "Maybe next week," he said. "Right now, I'm just buried alive at work." But next week, when I asked Dad again, he gave me the same answer. Later. One Saturday morning, I took my rod, reel, and tackle box outside. There was no water around our house, no streams, no creeks or ponds, but there were plenty of woods behind the house. A warm spring day. I walked along, and after a while, I came to a glassy clearing where the trees ended and the sun poured in. I sat down, opened the box, took out a sinker, and tied it onto the end of the line. I cast the line out into the grass. It sailed through the sunlight and landed on the far end of the clearing. I clicked the handle of my reel. The sinker skidded along the grass when I reeled it back. I did it again and again. Cast out, reel back in, cast out, reel back in. It was fun. There was a rhythm to it, like playing tennis or pitching in a baseball game. At first, I felt a little silly, fishing in the grass, but after a while, I completely forgot where I was. The grass became an ocean. The crows flying overhead turned into seagulls. Tall pine trees at the edge of the clearing swayed in the wind like masts on a ship. One time, I cast too far. The line and sinker got snagged into the branches of a tree, and I had to take out the fishing net to cut the line down. "Hey, how's it going? Fish fighting?" I turned around. Nate. "You following me?" I asked. "Beat it." "Nope, just out walking," he grinned. "Catch anything so far? You bring your fishing lessons?" Very funny. One day, in late May, Nate and I were playing catch in the backyard while Dad worked in the garage, putting up shelves. Dad is real tall, just one long drink of water, Grandma liked to say, and the shelves would be up high where us kids couldn't reach them. It was strange seeing Dad working with the drill, because he wasn't that good at building things. Not like my friend Joe McDonough's father, who built a new garage on their house all by himself. Dad was the first to admit that he wasn't great with tools. "My favorite tool is the telephone," he joked, meaning he'd use it to call the carpenter or plumber when things around the house needed fixing. Dad was good at other things, though. He was an expert on the history of the Civil War. He'd written lots of articles about it. I once saw him give a speech to a crowd of people, 100 or even more, all of them listening and writing down stuff he said. No way Mr. McDonough could do something like that. Now, Dad put down his drill and called us over. "You guys get your gear ready," he said. "Gear? Fishing gear," Dad said. "Tomorrow morning, we're going out on a fishing lift to catch some mess of fish." "All right," Nate said, slapping my hand so hard it hurt, and the hurt felt good. We raced into the house. The next day, Dad, Nate, and I got up early, packed the car, and left the house with empty stomachs. We drove about 5 miles and stopped at a restaurant just as the sun was coming up. all of us hungry as grizzlies. Nate loved meat, and he wanted to order the astronaut breakfast, steak and eggs. Dad said no to that, but he did let us order the lumberjack special: eggs, bacon, pancakes, juice, hot chocolate for us, coffee for him. At the fishing dock, there were about a dozen fishing boats lined up. "That's our boat," Dad said, pointing at one of the boats. Captain Bob. The Captain Bob looked brand new, clean white sides, crisp red lettering in the back, and a flying bridge. We went on board. There were about 10 of us, including the captain, a big guy with a red, veiny face and watery eyes. The guy looked older than Dad, but maybe it was just that his face was weathered from being on the ocean. He was wearing a Pittsburgh Steelers cap. "You must be Captain Bob," Dad said, reaching out to shake the man's hand. "I won't argue with that," Captain Bob said, smiling back. He crunched the bones in my hand when he shook it. "What's the occasion? Birthday?" "Well, sort of," I said. "Sort of a delayed birthday present," Dad put in, hoping to catch some real fish. "I think I can arrange that," Captain Bob said. "Welcome aboard." Captain Bob unhooked the lines and backed the boat out of the dock slip. We traveled slowly out into the ocean. A perfect day, no clouds, and barely any wind. The ocean looked like a huge sheet of glass someone had spent the night polishing. I stood in the back of the rail, watching a little cloud of seagulls chasing our boat. In about a half hour, Captain Bob cut the engine, threw in the anchor, and bang! We hardly had our lines in the water a half minute before the guy next to me had hooked a fish. Then another guy's rod got tugged down. "Got one!" Nate cried. "Whoa!" I felt a heavy tug on my line. "Me too!" I cried. "Bluefish!" Captain Bob yelled. "They run in schools. Keep your tips up." I tried to crank my reel, but it was hard. I could feel my fish under the water thrashing wildly. "Reeled in nice and steady," Dad yelled. He was struggling with his rod too. Finally, after about 5 minutes, I got my fish reeled in far enough so I could see the silver, shadowy shape of just beneath the surface. "Easy," Captain Bob said. He reached down and used a long hook to pull it in. The bluefish was thick and as long as my arm. "Nice fish, son," Captain Bob said, slapping him in the back. "Gave you some fight, didn't she?" "Oh, do I love blues. They ain't much for eating, but for my money, pound for pound, they're the best fighting fish in the sea." Nate landed his fish, and then hooked a bigger bluefish that gave him such a fight, Dad had to step in and finish pulling it up. I hooked something called a weak fish, even though it didn't feel weak. It nearly pulled my arms off. Everybody in the boat was catching fish, straining with their bent rods, with Captain Bob escaping from one side of the boat to the other, pulling in fish with his long hook. On the way home, the inside of our car had a nice fishy smell. My jeans were streaked with dried fish blood. I felt happy and a little sunburned and bone-tired. I'd caught 13 fish, Nate 11, and Dad 4, not counting all the fish he'd helped us with. "Have a good time?" Dad asked. "Yeah, great. I haven't been fishing for ages," Dad said. "Good thing we had a tackle box," Nate put in. "True. We'd had to replace a bunch of lost hooks and sinkers. Twice, Dad had used a fishing knife to cut off entangled line." "You said it," Dad said. He turned to the back seat to look at me. "Cliff, I want to borrow your tackle box so I can take the other kids out fishing tomorrow." Those words, "borrow your tackle box," gave me a weird feeling in my belly. I stared forward. I opened my mouth to say something, but my throat had frozen up. I couldn't speak. The feeling in my stomach kept getting stronger, and after a few minutes, I realized that it was an awful lot like a stomachache. Nate's friend, Ricky Topham, was waiting in the kitchen. Nate gave Mom his bag of fish and raced off with Ricky. "I just wonder what we're going to have for dinner," Mom said to me. "Ugh, you smell awful. Have a good time?" "Yeah, great," I said. Truth was, I didn't feel so great. I didn't eat much supper. Captain Bob was right. Bluefish looked a lot better than they tasted. Afterwards, I carried the tackle box up the 2 flights of stairs to my bedroom. The room was empty. Nate was downstairs watching TV. I put the tackle box on my bed and opened it. Some of the hooks and sinkers had gotten mixed together during the trip, and I spent a few minutes putting the gear back in the right place. The fishing knife had some dried fish guts on the blade and dried fish scales on its protective case, and I carefully cleaned that stuff off. When the tackle box was back in order, and everything was exactly the way it had been before the fishing trip, I closed it, put it on my desk, and lay on my bed. I closed my eyes to think about the fishing trip. I tried to remember all the fun we'd had, but for some reason, all I could see was Sin and Teddy and Brad pawing through my tackle box, messing up the drawers, spilling sinkers, losing hooks, tangling up the fishing line. Fooling around with my fishing knife, I blinked a couple times, but but hard as I tried, I couldn't get those pictures out of my head. I didn't mind the kids using my rod and reel, but the thought of them janking up my tackle box gave me a throbbing pain in my stomach. I didn't know what to do. An idea came to my head. I stood up, opened the tackle box, and started taking stuff out. I took out the extra hooks, the sinkers, the lures and bobbers, and the fishing line, the fishing knife. My heart was pounding something fierce. I hid all the fishing gear in the bottom drawer of my broom, under the sweaters. When the tackle box was empty, I went into the bathroom. At the back of the closet, I found a bag of old cloth. I opened the bag and started stuffing cloth into the empty tackle box. 3 diapers, Josh had outgrown, rags, pieces from a white sheet that had been made into a ghost costume for Brad, 2 pairs of old underwear full of holes, 6 athletic socks. I jammed all of it into the tackle box, and I kept stuffing in more and more, until nothing else could fit. I closed the top. The tackle box felt heavy, like usual, when I picked it up. I put it in its usual spot under my bed. I had trouble sleeping at night. Next morning, everyone got up early. While Mom made picnic lunch, Dad fixed pancakes. But the little kids were so excited about going fishing, they were practically bouncing off the walls. Josh and Brad rolled around under the kitchen table, wrestling and giggling. Sin jumped up and down at the kitchen table, too excited to sit down or eat. Teddy grabbed Josh by the ears and started shouting, "Dumbo the flying elephant! Introducing Dumbo the flying elephant!" Josh did have big ears. He was too little to understand about Dumbo, but he did know when he was being teased. Josh started to cry and tried to twist out of Teddy's grip. But Teddy wouldn't let go. "Stop it," I told Teddy and pulled him apart. "All right, we had breakfast," Dad said. "Let's just pack up the car and go." Mom brought out the lunch basket. Nate ducked into the garage to get the fishing rods. His, Dad's, mine. Teddy grabbed one of the rods and started cranking the reel. "Don't," Dad told him. "You're going to get the lines tangled before we get there." "Get into the car," Mom told Teddy. "Go up and get your tackle box," Dad told me. I ran upstairs. My bedroom was perfectly quiet. When I picked up the tackle box and carried it downstairs, I felt strange, as if I was someone else. "I'm going to catch an electric eel," Teddy was saying when I brought the tackle box to the car. "I'm going to catch an octopus," Brad said. "And Brandy's going to catch an alligator." Brandy was Brad's doll, a little weird-looking, bug-eyed elf with pointy ears and a bald-headed head. "Alligators don't live in the ocean," Sin told him, "and you shouldn't bring Brandy fishing. He's going to get fish guts on him." "I'm going, and he's coming with me," Brad said. I handed the tackle box to Dad. He put it next to him on the front seat of the car. The little kids piled into the back seat, Sin and Teddy at the windows, Brad in the middle. "Bye, bye," they yelled, waving madly at Mom, Nate, Josh, and me. Only Josh, who's in Mom's arms, didn't wave. "I go," he said sadly. "Next year," Mom told him, "when you're just a wee bit bigger." The car moved slowly down the crushed gravel driveway. Suddenly it stopped. Dad's window opened. He stuck out his head. "Cliff," he called, "come over here." I was already dead, my heart not beating, lungs not working, legs frozen to the ground. Somehow, I made it up to the car. Dad gave me a short, hard look. "Hold out your hand," he said. I reached out, palm up, finger spread. Dad put a $5 bill into my hand. "Thanks," he said. He smiled. "Thanks for being generous enough to lend us your tackle box. Without that tackle box, there's no way I could be taking these kids fishing." My throat was frozen. One last time I tried to say something, but Dad winked and drove away, the $5 bill fluttering like a wounded green butterfly in my hand. "No sense us just hanging around here," Mom said. "It's going to be a hot one. Let's just go to the beach. What do you say?" "Yes," Nate shouted. "Beach," Josh said. "Cliff, how about you?" "I guess," I said. Nate and I were crazy about Brant Rock Beach. Big waves, a fishing jetty you could walk way out on, plus a concession stand with plenty of ice cream and cold soda. At low tide, you could explore thousands of little tide pools. "Tide's out," Nate yelled as soon as we hit the beach. "Want to check for sea worms?" Fishermen would pay $1 a dozen for live sea worms, but you had to be careful. The worms could deliver a nasty bite. "Worms," Josh explained. "No," I said, spreading out my towel. "Why not?" Nate asked. "Just don't," I said. I lay down on my towel and let the hot sun beat down on my back. "Want to swim then?" Nate asked. "Swim," Josh said. "Nope," I said. "Anyone want a nice, cold, juicy peach?" Mom said. "Cliff?" "Nope," I said. "Not hungry. I don't think I'll be hungry all day." "You're not sick, are you?" she asked. I started to tell him no, but when I opened my mouth, words started pouring out, fast and low and mumbly, before I could stop them. Dad's gonna have trouble with the tackle box. Last night I took everything out. What? Mom asked, leaning forward. I don't think I heard you right. I said that last night I took all the fishing stuff out of the tackle box. I spoke louder this time. I didn't look at her, but I could feel Mom staring at me. You gave him the tackle box empty? I filled it with old diapers and other stuff. Really? Nate said. He had a surprised, almost happy look on his face. You have anything to do with this? Mom asked him. Me? Nate threw up his arms. No way, I did it myself, I said. Why? Mom demanded. That doesn't sound like you. Why would you do something like that? I was mad, I said, talking down at my towel. That sounded pretty lame, but I didn't know what else to say. Waves! Josh cried, pointing at the ocean. For a moment, Mom was quiet. She stood up, took Josh's hand, and began walking with him down to the water. She took a few steps and turned around to look at me. Well, Clifford, I expect your father will want to talk to you when he gets home. I know that, I thought, lying face down on my towel. Tell me something I don't know. We didn't stay at the beach very long, and that suited me fine. Back home, I changed my bathing suit back into shorts and a baseball t-shirt. I went up to my room. Only 2 o'clock. Dad probably wouldn't be home till 5. 3 long hours, and I knew they'd be tough hours to kill. I walked over and stood in front of the mirror above my dresser. My face stared back at me. Mr. Responsibility, Mr. Set a good example. I felt awful. Most days, I avoided mirrors at all costs. I had Mom's brown eyes and Dad's big ears. Not as big as Josh's, maybe, but big enough that I'd been teased a few times. It was weird, seeing Mom's eyes and Dad's elephant ears stuck into my own face. I had a ton of freckles and a little pug nose. Hardly a nose at all. And worse, this spiraling cowlick in my hair, dead center above my forehead. It looked okay in my baby pictures, but now that I was older, I hated it. Nate came to the bedroom. He was a year younger than me and 5 times heavier. I would have traded my face for his in a second. It was as if he cherry-picked the best features from Mom and Dad. From Dad he got the bright blue eyes, minus the big ears. He had Mom's straight blonde hair, no pug nose, no freckles, and no cowlick. You're in big trouble, he said, lying on his bed with a little smirky smile on his face. It killed me seeing how much he was enjoying the situation. Thanks, Einstein, I replied coolly. What do you think Dad'll do? He asked. He might take away your tackle box forever. I hadn't considered that, but I just shrugged, as if I couldn't care less. I looked away, but my eye snagged on something on top of my dresser. The $5 bill. It hurt to look at it. The bill was all curled and wrinkled. I picked it up and tried to smooth it out. Then I started to leave the room. Where are you going? Nate asked. None of your business, I said. Mom and Dad's bedroom was empty. Downstairs in the kitchen, I could hear Mom playing with Josh. I left the $5 bill on top of Dad's brew. So what are you going to do? Nate asked when I returned. Don't you have someplace to go or something? I asked him. Not really, Nate replied. He gave me one of those fake Cheshire cat grins. You're really starting to bug me. It's my room too, Nate said. Thanks for reminding me. Nate pulled out a comic book, but a few minutes later, he put it away and left the room. I tried playing with my baseball cards. I'd been collecting since 1st grade, and a pretty big card collection, a shoebox and a half. But today, it wasn't much fun looking through them. All the little numbers in the back started getting on my nerves, and it hit me that for a long time, I hadn't really been having much fun with my baseball cards. I rubber banded the stacks together and carried them down to the den. Nate was watching TV. Want these? I asked. I held up 5 neat stacks of cards. He looked at me suspiciously. All of them? How much? For nothing. For free. Nate's eyes grew wide. You don't want your cards anymore? Nah, I said, kid stuff. Sure, I'll take them, he said. Hey, thanks. Upstairs again. I tried to read. I pretended to read. I wanted to read. I squinted at the page as though each word was code to be cracked. But all the while, I was listening to the sound of my father's car in the crushed gravel driveway. It started getting dark. Finally, after about 1,000,000 years, I heard the sound of tires moving slowly on the driveway, followed by the sound of a car engine. The engine turned off. The doors opened, slammed shut. The front door opened. Mom! Mom! Teddy's voice. We got fish! A whole minute passed. Then a deeper voice from the bottom of the stairs. Clifford? Come on down here. Dad. I pulled myself off my bed and started coming down 2 flights of stairs. I made myself go up a regular speed, and I counted the stairs on the way down. 22 steps. I wish it had been 2,000 or in 22, 2,022. I wish I could have gone down and down and down the stairs forever and never had to reach the bottom. Dad was waiting in the kitchen, standing. When Dad got mad, he got quiet and serious. Now, he stood in front of me, looking very serious. It was hard looking at him, so I tried looking at the fishing rod sitting against the table. I noticed that there was a key, like a car key or a house key, jerry-rigged to one of the fishing lines, instead of a sinker, about 8 inches from the hook. A bad sign. The tackle box sat on the table. Just then, I wished it hadn't been quite so bright and shiny, so red. Just one question, Dad said. Why? Why did you do it? At that moment, Brad came running into the kitchen. Hey, Cliff, we caught a lot of fish, he yelled to me. Mom came in to get him. Come on, she said, leading him out. Dad wants to talk to Cliff alone. Why? Dad asked me. He wasn't yelling. Dad never yelled. Why had I done it? I'd only asked myself that question 1,000 times that day. I'm sorry, I said. I shrugged and looked away. Mighty hard to keep hooks or sinkers on the lines when there's no extra in the tackle box. He folded his arms. Come on, talk to me. Why? I don't know. I guess, well, I can't hear you, Dad said. I guess, well, the tackle box is like my favorite toy, but it's not a toy. It's better. I shrugged again. I didn't want to share it. Dad kept staring at me. I let out a breath and tried one more time to explain. It was so new. I guess I wasn't ready to, let anybody use it. Now it was Dad's turn to let out a breath. He sat down and looked at me. Why don't you say something? He asked, softer now. I shrugged again. Look, I think I can understand how you might have felt now, but I'm no mind reader. You've got to speak up if something like this happens, okay? You can't expect people to go around fishing for your feelings, He smiled a tiny smile. Fishing for your feelings. It was a joke, a little joke, an accidental joke, a dumb joke. But it was amazing how much better it made me feel. I'm real sorry, I said again, and I meant it. Dad nodded and scratched his head. Well, if it's any consolation, I don't think the other kids even noticed, he said. And the funny thing is, the stuff you put in sort of came in handy. I looked up. Sin hated fishing. She took one of the rags and made a headband, and pretended she was some kind of karate kid. Teddy cut his thumb. I'd used another rag to bandage it up. Brad didn't much like fishing either. He found a diaper and used it with his doll. Teddy even brought home the fish he caught in one of those big baggy socks put in. I almost asked if anyone found any use for the pairs of old underwear I stepped in, but I decided against it. What did you do with the $5 I gave you? I put it on your broom. I spoke in a whisper. Didn't it feel strange taking the money? Yeah. Then why did you? I don't know. I was, in shock. Know what I want you to do? Dad asked. What? Here it comes, I thought. No allowance, grounded for a month, maybe worse. I want you to go upstairs and get that money. Take it and put it in your wallet. Find a special place for it. Don't spend it. Keep it so you won't forget this. Okay, I said. I thought, I'll never, ever forget this. I turned to go. Wait, Dad handed me the tackle box. You better take this. Upstairs, Nate smirked when I walked into the room. Dad was wicked mad, right? He asked. I didn't say anything. You get in trouble? I said nothing. You're grounded or what? Not really. He didn't really punish me like that. You're kidding. I'm not kidding. Nate gave me a disgusted look. You get away with everything, he said. He shook his head and sat down heavily on his bed. Tell you one thing, I'm not giving you back your baseball cards. I put the tackle box on my bed, opened it, and pulled out a clump of rags, diaper, underwear. When the tackle box was empty again, I took the fishing gear out of the bottom drawer of my dresser and started putting it back to the little drawers where it belonged. You gave me your cards fair and square, Nate said. No trade backs, right? I poured the sinkers into one of the little drawers. Nate kept staring at me, expecting me to say something. Do you want them back? Nate asked. Because, nope, I said. I don't. I can keep them? Really? Really. They're all yours. It seemed like a small price to pay.